loud enough? No? Maybe. Okay, good. Yeah. All right, I'm going to read a little short one and then one somewhat longer. This first one is dedicated to my childhood hero, Miss Frizzle. It's called My Husband Has a Heart. I like to play this game where I cut open my husband's chest. Finger scissors to sternum, snip, snip. I grab the flaps of his skin and splay them open, push myself in head first. It's not enough to sit in his chest cavity. I shrink magic school bus style until I'm small enough to take a ride on his bloodstream. Float red cell rafts into his heart. Inside, I bounce around the 4 chambers like a kid on a trampoline. Sweep my legs out in front of me and land on my tailbone, then spring back, pedaling right, left, right. And when I'm good and tired from my splits and flips, I slip through the mitral valve into the richest corner, lie back, arms open, and take gasping gulps of blood. Spread and squish my toes through the platelets, run them down his arterial walls. I could stay a while longer. Head on his shoulder, head on his ventricle, breathing plasma and eating erythrocytes. But it's time to come back out, he says. Better go get showered off. And yes, of course, it's only a joke. I have no real desire to slice and skin. It just seems like a good place to be, to approach his desk, straddle his lap, and push my forehead to his breastbone. Let me in there, I say. I need to swim. Let's see. Okay, and then this next one, so I have this friend who's very, very smart. He's getting a PhD in environmental science at MIT, and according to his Facebook, basically this whole planet's going to be like a dystopian hellscape in like 10 years, oil wars, that type of thing. So I was reading his Facebook post, and then at the same time I found out my sister was pregnant with twins. So I got really preoccupied with, the end of the world, and that's where this comes from. It's called Planetarium. They are born on the edge of winter when it is still cold and biting, but the icicles on the trees are dripping wet. We wrap them in scraps of our wedding clothes, the girl in white silk, the boy in black wool. We'd worried there might be 2 when, despite everything, her belly grew big. But it's one thing to worry and another to face it. When she won't take the second, the boy, I carry them both to the cracked window to watch water slip from the leaves in heavy drops, and I tell them their first story about the way we used to be. About 2-foot-tall cakes, orbs of red fruit floating past on plates of silver, people screaming in song. Outside, the piles of brown snow are beginning to thaw, and all of the sky is a single cloud. We are always careful with what we tell them. That's the deal we have. When we first realized she was with child, my wife waded into the river and lowered her head beneath the gray surface. I returned from a trap and found her there, dragged her out, legs only just kicking. I told her maybe it was time for children again. Maybe this was God's way of saying it's time. She didn't speak for 3 weeks, maybe 4. When she finally did, she said, "Only if we do it right." So when they are out hunting and spot for the first time high above the cracked pavement posters of giant tomatoes the color of blood, and they run home to tell us, we tell them the story of the fat farmer and his rows and rows of plants, each exactly, perilously the same. We tell them how the fat farmer was greedy and vile and sent his clones to everyone in the land. What's a clone, they ask. Are they bad for you? Yes, we say. Poison. And later, when digging through a pile of trash, they pull out an old advertisement for beer. We point out the people of the old time and say, look how strange and smooth their skin is. Rusted orange sliced with luminous, painful white. These people never worked, we say. They only wasted. And the children nod their heads in agreement. At night, after they go to sleep, we lie with dirt lining our fingernails and tell each other different stories. Microwave popcorn, my wife whispers, butter and salt. Sushi, I say, with fluffy, sticky rice. And salmon, she whispers back, pink and slick. One day, when the boy, almost a teenager, pitches a bone off his plate and onto the sinking floor, we retell them the story of the selfish woman who tossed her mug out the window after each drink. And what happened to her, I ask? The pile of mugs got so big it collapsed, sighs the boy. By now they know these stories by heart. Yes, says the girl, smiling, and it buried her alive. That night my wife and I play a darker game, and each word seems to fall from space. The girl, she asks. Maybe a politician, I say. Yes, she says, or a lawyer. Same thing, I say, or it was. And what about the boy, I ask, and she turns to me, rustling dust out of the blanket. She whispers almost nothing. You. Sometimes my wife gets very tired, and sometimes she coughs up things red, and it's those nights I lead the children up to the hilltop and teach them what I know about stars. I point out the Big Dipper, the Little, Orion, Leo. I make up new stories to go with them. The humble hunter, the quiet beast. Did you do this with your dad, they want to know? We have not taught them the word grandfather. I tell them that in the old days, before the fossil fuels ran out, the atmosphere was so saturated with light, the burning bulbs of our architecture blotted out the stars. They mouth this new word with uncertain lips. I say we had to invent theaters with screens that mimic the sky, just so we could remember what it looked like. That's how I learned the heavens, I say, in a theater. Never like this, they ask, bodies sinking into the wet grass. No, I say, never. When they are 14, their mother passes in the night. I roll over to reach, and her arm is ice beneath my fingertips. Minutes later, I am running and panting into the dark. I'll go back eventually because I must, but on this night I splash into the river, which has passed from gray to olive, knees jumping high until I slap onto my back. Lifting my eyes to the black sky, I see that we have not prepared them. We have taught them to survive, not to be as we were, but we've not prepared them for what they'll become, not addressed the instincts that scream from behind cell walls, those galactic voices in each of us that breathe. Even the stars belong to you. I can make out Gemini barely, stellar bodies glowing against a shrinking perimeter. I want to answer every question they have, confess to my constellation of lies, tell them that of course I am the fat farmer and their mother the selfish woman, and what's worse, I wish we could be again. That while our bellies howled and we learned the shape of our stomachs in their emptiness, their mother and I whispered food to each other to sing ourselves to sleep. That it was us who destroyed the world, and I would give anything for another shot at it. And maybe I will tell them one day, when it's my turn to descend into this shimmering, uninterrupted sky, under millions of unspoiled lights, that what I miss most of all is breathing in the 71-degree recycled air of the planetarium, leaning back in the seats, and staring up at an impossibly large universe.